Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. This is Sarah. I'm a registered pharmacist here in the state of Washington, and some of you guys might recognize me from the MPGE videos that I posted a few months ago on my channel. Now, the reason why I'm back here today was because of how extremely positive your responses and your messages were on my other videos that I thought it would be a good idea to post this video exclusively for tips and tricks and a mini tutorial on how I passed the NAPLEX with a score of 127. I hope you find this video helpful and as helpful as you found my other videos on the MPGE tips and tricks helpful. So I will start off by mentioning that I'm a foreign grad pharmacist. I have practiced pharmacy several years outside of the US before permanently moving here. And the reason why I thought I'd mention this was because I believe that the time duration that took me to prepare for the NAPLEX might be slightly a bit longer than the time duration that is needed for freshly pharmacists that are graduated from schools here in the US. So roughly the time duration that I needed to prepare for the NAPLEX was about 3 months. Now, many of my friends who are freshly grads from schools here from the US took around maybe 6 weeks. Some took more, some took less. It depends on each person. But for me, I took 3 months to prepare for the NAPLEX, and I believe that this amount of time was more than enough. So I was preparing for the NAPLEX while I was working as a pharmacy intern. Now, I wanted to really quick mention my internship program that I took. So I divided my internship hours between hospital settings and retail setting. And the reason why I did that was I believed, and I still do, that the experience that you get from each setting is very valuable and is very different than the other. And I thought it would be good to intern in hospital and intern in retail as a pharmacy intern, so that I would realize and make my mind on which setting I would like to continue working in as a pharmacist when I got licensed. Now, the resources that I used for the NAPLEX was exclusively from RxPrep. So I have not used any other resources outside of the RxPrep. What I exclusively used and what really worked for me was, number one, the RxPrep course book. So this, like I mentioned, I took my exam late 2017. So this was the 2017 edition. Now I know that there's a new edition that is out right now that you can buy from their website. As you can see, the book is big. So this is about 1,100 pages, but don't let this scare you because you will be able to finish that book not only once, not only twice, maybe even 3 times if you really give yourself enough time to go over these all these pages in the book. Of course, needless to say that the internship that I took from a pharmacy setting really helped me a lot while preparing for the NAPLEX, and that is because one of the most complex and most challenging parts while preparing for the NAPLEX, for me at least, was learning the brand names. Now, there are lots of brand names in the pharmacy, and of course, before you sit for the NAPLEX, you want to make sure that you learn all the brand names by heart. You want to make sure that you're really confident with the brand names in all the book here before you sit for the exam. And so interning for thousands of hours before you take the exam can really help prepare you without you even realizing for that part, and can really make your studying easier. Now, I got this book, I believe it was about $180, but not only did I study from this book alone, I also ordered the test bank and the online videos that they provide on RxPrep. Now, the test bank and the videos were pricey, so they were around $800, and that is a lot of money for a student who is preparing to be licensed, and it is a lot of money, to be honest. However, As a visual learner myself, I really think that the videos were extremely helpful. The lecturers on RxPrep, Karen Shapiro, and all the other awesome lecturers on the videos on RxPrep really came through, and they helped make a lot of the complex chapters like HIV and like the arteriosclerosis, anticoagulation. All these chapters really were more fun to study when I watch the videos while reading from the book. Sometimes it can really get to you, you know, going over charts and tables on the book, and the book is big, and you know, studying from the book alone can really make you go, oh. But the videos really help make that process, you know, more fun, especially for doing that for 3 months. Now, if you can't, if you don't want to get the videos, you absolutely have to get the test bank. Test bank will give you a lot of practice, especially when it comes to the math quizzes on the test bank. I really think that it was completely worth every penny I paid for the test bank. Now, if you are a pharmacist or a pharmacy student who is in school here in the U.S., I believe that most schools actually pay for these things, or even if you're interning, some places actually, places that work at might actually pay for that, the RxPrep book and the test bank and videos. So you might try and ask and see. So another thing that I also used, but I do not recommend, actually I got it, I did not use as much, was the Prana Pass. And some people swear by it, and that was one of the reasons why I got it. It was really pricey, especially if you get the whole package. So it comes in a stack of cards and posters. So example of posters would be like, you know, posters like these for each chapter, and then also a stack of cards for each chapter. So these are a stack of cards for the math, and if I can recommend anything from the Prana Pass, it would actually be the math cards. So these are the math cards from Prana Pass. I don't remember how much it was exactly. I'll check and I will post it in the description down below. But if there's anything I recommend from the Prana Pass, it would be the math problems. They're really good for practicing if you feel like the book, the practice test on the test bank, and the 120 questions that I will mention now from the student doctor forums are not enough, then maybe you can get the cards. Now, the 120 questions are questions that were posted, I believe, by one of the professors from pharmacy school. And it's quite of an overkill. They're really hard questions, questions that are too complex to, you know, to see on a NAPLEX exam. However, many of the pharmacy students that were commenting on the forums were saying that if you go over these 120 questions once and twice, then you should be good to go for any math question that you might see on the NAPLEX exam. And I also agree with that. So these are questions that you can download from the student doctor forums. I will make sure to put the link also down in the description, and you can just, you know, look at the answer key, which is at the end of the PDF, and kind of, you know, see how you're doing with these questions. So lots of practice here. One other thing that I want to mention while I was studying for the math, so to be completely honest with you, I know lots of people preparing for the NAPLEX who tell you you should practice at least 1 hour a day math and biostatistics every single day before you sit for the NAPLEX. Now with me, I honestly didn't do that, but what I would do was that I would alternate between the math and every chapter that I would study as kind of, you know, a break, just taking a break and reminding myself of the equations so I don't forget. So for example, I would do math and then take diabetes, study diabetes, and then do math, and then, you know, study steroids, and then do math, and then study something else. Just kind of alternate, just to kind of keep the equations in my head, and to give myself a lot of time to practice. Now I started studying my NAPLEX preparation, I started preparing, and the first thing I started with was the calculations. So calculations are the first couple of chapters in the 2017 edition of the RxPrep. I started with these chapters. I believe there were about 200 practice questions after each equation. After each explanation, they would give you some questions to kind of make sure that you got the idea. And I would divide these 200 questions, do 50 questions every day, just to make sure that I finished all the math and got all the math done with, just in terms of reading it and then practicing it along the 3 months as I went by. And one thing that I found really that really benefited me was, at the beginning of my studying, I would add all the equations in one piece of paper, front and back, because I'm a visual learner, and having all the equations in one page really helps a lot while you're studying, in my point of view. And this really helped me a lot while I was studying, because it kind of helped me learn all these equations by heart. And you kind of want to make sure that you know these equations even while you're sleeping, because if it takes you a long time to just remember the equation in the exam, then probably 6 hours won't be enough for you to finish all the questions, the 250 questions of the NAPLEX. And the reason why math and biostatistics are one of the most important chapters on the NAPLEX, not only because you want to make sure that you get these questions right, but also because you want to make sure that you get these questions right and finish them in a timely manner, because you want to make sure that you finish all your exam before the time is over. And so that this is the reason why it's very important to practice a lot of math, because you want to get your head going really fast, and you want to make sure that even when you are sleepy, even when you are stressed, you can get these math calculations really quick while you're in the exam. Okay, so enough with the math. Now that you know how math and biostatistics are very important and that you must practice them a lot, and now that you know the resources to use for the math, one other thing that I found that was helpful while preparing for the exam was, if you go to the RxPrep website, click on Student Resources at the top, and then go to My Study Plan. RxPrep has an amazing schedule. They have, this is a table that I printed last year, but I checked their website today, and they actually have an updated schedule there. So what this practically is, it's a table. It's divided into 3 parts, and each part shows you the amount of time that you need to study per chapter. So for example, these are the small chapters in the book. They tell you it takes about half an hour to an hour and a half to finish. So the reason why I think this is helpful is because while you're studying, while you're doing your own timetable and your own scheduling for the time period that you give yourself to prepare for the NAPLEX, you can kind of know how many chapters you can finish from each branch. So let's say if you're going to do only the small chapters per day, you can actually finish 3 chapters from this in one day if you want to take your time and read it and then revise it and so on. So you will kind of know how to pace yourself. These are the medium-sized chapters. So these, as RxPrep would tell you, takes 1.5 hours to 3 hours. And then these are the chapters with all the meat. So chapters like diabetes, chapters like the systemic steroids, and the autoimmune conditions, which are all in one chapter, with chapters like the oncology or anticoagulation. So these are the chapters that have like all the meat that you would probably need more than 3 hours, maybe a day or two, to make sure that you understand really well. So this is a really great resource to use for your study plan. I'll put the link down there. It's copyrighted exclusively to RxPrep, so make sure that you visit their website and go to the link that I will put down there to be able to look at that awesome table that they have. Now, last but not least, just one last thing that I want to mention. It's just piece of advice for me. Now, if you go onto groups or forums, you'll find people that ask, what chapters should we focus on before we prepare for the exam. I want to tell you that everything, every single page, every single paragraph in this 1,100 page book is a fair game. So you will be expected to know all disease states. You'll be expected to know all the medication, all the drugs that's there in the pharmacy, and expect to be asked on anything from small chapters like cystic fibrosis to big chapters like HIV. Do not leave anything. Read every single page in this book. This is an advice from me to you guys as a person who sat for the NAPLEX. The people who put this exam are, I don't know how they do it, they're extremely talented people, that they make sure that whoever is taking this exam has not missed anything. They will ask you about everything. And as you know, the exam consists of math by statistics, random questions that should, take just 1 second if you know it or not, just, questions that like a side effect of one medication. So if it's either you know it or you don't, so that doesn't take long. But then with the questions that are case studies, some questions are case studies and you have a medical chart and you have to read the labs and the history, and then you get like 8 questions related to that case study. And if that case study happens to be one of the chapters that you haven't even looked at, or one of the chapters that you thought would not be so important because they're like a small chapter, or you didn't have time to read that chapter, if you miss 8 questions and a whole case study on the exam, it won't be, the best thing to happen, and I'm sure you don't want that to happen to you. So everything is fair game. No chapters are more important to other chapters. Make sure that you go over all the book at least once, and make sure that you give yourself time to revise at least 2 weeks before the exam. Make sure that you give yourself time to revise the things that you already studied. So I would say read that book at least twice before you take the exam. Practice a lot of math, practice a lot of biostatistics, and then look out for any trick questions on the exam. If it comes to math and biostatistics, make sure that you really read between the lines. Make sure that you read the labs, and I believe that you'd be all set to go if you do all these things. One last thing is also that helps with studying is making a lot of Postits while you're studying. So if you when you're practicing on the test bank, and when you get a question wrong, make sure that you write the question and the answer on a Post-it, and just put it in front of you on the wall, on your table. Make sure that you the Post-it is right in front of you in a place where you can see it along the day, and that way you'll never forget the things that you wrote here. So these are all the tips and tricks that I've used while studying for the NAPLEX. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you find this video helpful, and if there's anything that I missed, or if there's anything that you were wondering about, or if there's anything you need to ask about, just make sure you leave a comment down below there. Good luck with your studying. I hope you all the best of luck, and I'll see you guys soon in any future videos. Thank you.